Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air global network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Gillian McAllister. Gillian is the New York Times bestselling author of Reese's book club pick, Wrong Place, Wrong Time, Everything But the Truth, The Choice, The Good Sister, The Evidence Against You, How to Disappear, and the Richard and Judy Book Club pick, That Night. She graduated with an English degree before working as a lawyer, and she lives in Birmingham, England, where she now writes full-time. She's also the creator and co-host of the popular Honest Authors podcast. And her latest book, which I just stayed up too late to finish, is called Just Another Missing Person. Welcome, Gillian.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
Oh, so we were just talking before we got on the air about the fact that it's been exactly a year since, and I think I learned about the Reese thing like 5 seconds after, like a day or two after you and I talked. So that is so exciting. I know you had to keep that super, super secret, and it had to have been hard.
I so wanted to tell you, but yes, I was embargoed. It was the hardest secret of my life.
I'll bet it was. But I did know at that time that you were pregnant. You shared that with me after we got off the air. And I want to talk about just how much of your life has changed in this last year in such exciting ways. But first, before I get way, way ahead of myself, tell listeners about Just Another Missing Person.
So, Just Another Missing Person is another standalone thriller. It tells the story of Julia, who is a police officer, but she's also a mother. And she is assigned to a missing person investigation. And on the first day of it, she walks to her car, which is parked a little bit away from the police station. And there's a man in the back wearing a balaclava who tells her he knows her worst secret, and she has to do everything he tells him on this case. Otherwise, he's going to reveal it.
Yes. And as a mother,
You're
of
nodding.
course. Yeah, well, and as a mother, of course, this is about her daughter, right? I mean, it's her daughter that's at risk here, and that is, of course, why we all know, every mother knows that we would do exactly what Julia did in an impossible situation.
Yeah, her daughter is liable for crime. Julia used her police powers to cover it up, and somebody now knows about that, and so she is corruptible, which was sort of what I wanted to write about. Like, police corruption's a bit of a hot topic. There's a show over here called Line of Duty that everybody's very into, and I sort of thought it's very easy to write about police that want to make money on the side and will become corrupt, but I was kind of thinking, what if the corruption was actually understandable and relatable? And that's kind of where it came from.
Yes, which it totally is. And then it is absolutely from there completely Gillian McAllister, because there's a middle of the book twist that turns the whole thing on its head, and then subsequent twists where even in the last pages, as I was just saying before we started recording, there are just those last twists that just leave you thinking, wow, masterfully done. And I know, because I always read the acknowledgments I love hearing who people think, and that you basically, again, as we talked about last year, rewrote this book. This time it sounds like even more times than normal. Yeah. So we talked about that you were going to stop doing that, I think, last time we talked.
I know, I have really not stopped. I'm doing it again right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I love that. So for those who missed the interview about Wrong Place, Wrong Time, which was, such a fabulous book too. And the first book of yours I'd ever read. And when I read it, I thought, oh my God, I have to speak to her. So tell us about the process that you go through. It sounds like with every book, and maybe it's just going to be your way. And how does that work for you when you write the first draft and then you rewrite it, and it sounds like maybe even again this time?
Yeah, usually for me, a first draft is a really dirty first draft, but actually, really, I do delete it, which really shocks everybody usually that I tell, but I start again from scratch, because something about writing the first draft that I can't get the information from doing a synopsis. Something about it teaches me what the book is about. And then at some point during that first draft, usually towards the end, I learn what the book is about and I just select all and delete and start over. But yes, with Just Another Missing Person, I did that multiple times actually, because the twist requires a big assumption by the reader and a lot of misdirection, and I just couldn't get it to work. So I think I deleted it twice. So I'm actually getting worse, I would say.
So when you say a first draft is dirty, is it, how long is the first draft for you? Is it the full book, or is it more like, is it, I'm trying to find ways in which to sort of salvage the fact that you write this book over and over by saying, is the first draft like
No,
30,000 words?
No, I wish it's like 90,000. But I do it in 9 weeks, really. So there is time within my year to do this, and this is how I do it. Very quick, multiple drafts is my process. But yeah, it's not, I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing this. It's just what I do.
Right. No, but it's not. So I don't know that we talked about the time of it last time, and that's really curious to me. So because now you have a baby. Congratulations. You have a little
Thank
boy
you.
who's got to be like,
I do have a little boy.
How old is he now?
He's almost 9 months, which is
That went by
crazy.
really fast for me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It did for me, actually, although I feel like he's been here forever as well. It's quite a weird
Yes.
thing, isn't it?
Yes. So tell us about how that has changed your, I know when we talked before, your husband is sort of being the primary caregiver, or at least taking a lot of time off in order to help. So that's helpful, but I know we also talked about the fact that as mom, it's really hard to sort of walk away and relegate that responsibility and also the time to somebody else. So did that go as you planned?
It did and it didn't. I think so my husband did take 6 months off, but really I sort of managed the whole autumn winter on pretty much 2 hours work a day.
Okay.
So my husband would take the baby for 2 hours and I did nothing except write. Like, I replied to emails at other times, like on my phone while feeding and stuff, and in the middle of the night. And I took that 2 hours and all I did was write my first draft, which I did then delete, which was even worse because the time was so hard won.
Right.
So, and then I would give my husband 2 hours off, so we were very equal in the caregiving, which I wanted to do. I want to have it all, and that it's a perennial problem for women, I think, in particular. So it did, and now he's older. We have a nanny 3 days a week, but only 9 till 3, and he's actually a great napper, so he is asleep for like half of that. So that helps my guilt.
Yeah.
So that really works for us, actually. And my husband then works 4 days a week, and so do I. So we each have a day with the baby. So I do get 4 days to work. So that, I'm way more sane now, now that I have actual designated time. The thing that I didn't realize, I think, the most was when I used to spend time alone before, it was not loaded, whereas now it's a commodity with my husband. That's like a big change for me, like, because you're doing your me time, they're doing the parenting, and that's like a transaction that we've not really had before. So that was a big change. But actually the writing and the identity, that kind of went how I wanted it to. Like, I was always going to write, I think.
Yeah. No, that makes super sense. So in 2 hour increments, you must have been sort of thinking like ahead of time, I have these 2 hours, what exactly am I working on? And so that you sat down and just, did you, just were able to write, versus like sometimes we spend this time. Yeah.
I mean, I was a lawyer before, and it reminded me a lot of that. And And yeah, I find having a baby quite mindful in many ways. Or I did. He's older now, so it's more chaotic. But
Yeah.
when he was like a little baby, it was quite I'd be feeding him for like an hour and
Yeah.
my mind would spin. But yeah, I think I just was super concentrated for those 2 hours. They were like 4 hours of old time, and that's how it is, I think.
Yes, you get to be more efficient, and like you said, you appreciate the time more, and it also has a different weight to it because of the fact that
Yeah,
somebody else is working while you're, there's no sort of really free time anymore, right? It's different. It's a
no.
different type of free time. So you write a draft. So you were at that point, you were writing this. Were you writing this book, or this was already done? I can't remember
That was
where
already
you would have been.
done. So I've
Okay.
written a new book since
Yeah.
the baby was born. And I'm delivering it next week.
Oh
So
gosh,
yeah,
congratulations. But okay,
thanks.
so when you wrote the first, so you in this book, this is your pregnancy book, basically, right?
Yes,
And
correct. Yeah.
and you had a good pregnancy, you felt good.
Um, I was
No.
very fatigued, but I
Yeah.
was very sleepy with it. So I could literally just sleep in the middle of the day and then recharge. I don't know how people do that with a child, like with a toddler or whatever. But yeah, so I was fatigued and I was quite anemic, which contributed.
Mm,
But I
yeah.
wasn't sick and I was quite active. It's a weird fatigue, isn't it? It's like really soporific. Like I could walk the dog miles and be fine, but then sometimes I would just go to sleep. Like, and I'd go to sleep in all sorts of weird places where I've never, like on a coach or whatever, on a train.
Yes, yes,
Very weird.
yes.
But yeah,
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
it,
worked
yeah,
throughout. Yeah.
you worked
Like I
throughout.
delivered
So
the page proofs of that the day before my C-section.
you do sort of love to do these things, right? You
I
know,
know. I just thought I want to stay on a book a year. And I was like, right, how can I actually do this then? So we sort
right.
of really condensed the editing process. Because I knew like I wouldn't be able to proofread a book with a baby.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I've got to do it all before then. So it was like tough at times, but it's fine. We
But
can
you
do
get it
hard
done.
things, etc.
We can
Yeah.
do hard things, exactly. And what do you how do you feel about you said this, you made this comment in acknowledgments about now you are experiencing the thing that you always write about, right? Which is the motherhood thing. And as
Yeah.
you reflect now, like on, wrong place, wrong time, she has a son, Julia has a daughter, but Emma has a son. So how does it feel? Does it, it seems like you had it pretty right all along, but does it feel like it's weightier now that you are a mom?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's weird because parenting a baby is different to what I've written about in a way.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I think because I don't know him yet, really, um, you know, his personality is beginning to emerge. I think there's some of it that what I would say is it feels a lot more natural than I portray. Like a lot of the mothers in my book are very self-conscious, but I find myself thinking, oh, like, I'd die for you, but I don't think about it consciously. That's just
Yes.
what I would like to do if
Right.
the
You'd
decision
hope not to have
arose.
to right, exactly. You
Yeah,
hope not to have to do it.
exactly.
But as you said, the kids in the books are troubled. I mean, for the most part, troubled teenagers, right? I mean, the books that I have
Yeah,
read are these kids who are, for one reason or another, in a bad position, and their parents are also have made decisions, that make them vulnerable, right? Julia, Emma, I've forgotten the mom from Wrong Place, Wrong Time, but
Jen,
those are,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So it's
think I
different.
do. Yeah, it is different. I do like to write about teenagers because they have some autonomy, and I think for plot that's interesting.
Yes.
Um, as to whether the emotions will be accurate, I suppose we'll have to wait and see.
Yes. Well, I think you've hit, you've definitely touched on things that I find universal. I don't have teenagers anymore, but I've been through that. And I think, the emotions are absolutely on. I loved the fact that we actually have a bunch of parents in this book, right? It's kind of,
Mm.
it's largely parents of kids who are, in jeopardy one way or another, which is and you do, really one thing really from the more minor characters. There's a mosquito like right in front of my little devil. Anyway, I'm like trying to avoid him biting me, but and even down to sort of the characters in the people she works with in the police department, like her sort of most relied upon colleague Jonathan, also like kind of a new dad, right? So all these people, all these parents, it's like it's a collection of parents. So tell us, it sounded like also from the acknowledgments that it was your dad who sort of made a comment that helped you sort of figure out the twist of the book. And that was really interesting. Tell us about that. How did these things happen? What do you guys talk about at the dinner table that this comes up?
Yeah, well, so he came up with who Olivia is, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
I came up with the fact of how that arranges itself with the narrators.
Of course. Yeah.
But yeah, I basically said, I want to write about a missing woman, but I don't want her to be dead, and I don't want her to have escaped or run away. And my dad was like, well, they're your two options, really. And I always want to do something different to other thriller writers, I suppose. And he then said the twist.
Right.
And I couldn't let go of it. And it was an off the cuff remark from him. And I thought, I really want to do this. Like, I really want to. And it did the twist controls the narrative of that book. But I couldn't let it go, even when, in the first iteration, it's really hard to talk about this without revealing it, but it was different anyway, and
it didn't work.
Took multiple iterations to get it to really work. Yeah.
So once you write your 9-week draft, which I love that, and you think are you still writing a 9-week draft now that you have?
Well, so I wrote a first draft before the baby was born of my next, and I have done a second, third, fourth, and fifth draft since he was born. So I haven't actually done one, but I think so. It's about 2,000 words a day. So yeah, I think I probably will. That will be this September.
That's your 4 days a week. About 2,000 words a day.
Yeah, so I've lost a day, and unless I work during a nap, which I don't like to do because I have the baby completely by myself 1 day a week, and I think you go a bit insane if you work in the nap. So
better to nap.
I lose that day.
Nap.
Yeah. Well, yeah, or like, bake a cheesecake. That's what I did last Tuesday.
Okay.
But just something for yourself, But I try and spread the work into the other days and maybe work a couple of hours at a weekend. So yeah, it's basically 2,000 words a day, 5 days a week somehow.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you did a second, third, fourth, and fifth. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
But not.
Yeah. So I'm about to deliver. Yeah.
Not deleting all. You only delete all.
Well, I deleted the first draft, but then I actually deleted the fourth draft.
Oh.
Yeah. So
wow.
I'm
so impressed by this.
I know.
This takes Kill Your Darlings
don't
to
be
a whole different level.
Don't be. I don't know. It's mad. I would not recommend it. But that is what I've done.
Yes, that's even more than before. Okay, so then so it sounds like, it sounds as though, this is your pattern. This is working for you. You're going to get to the point now where you're like, this is just how I work. You are there. You embrace it. And I think that's probably important for all authors to know. You embrace it reluctantly.
Yeah, I do think every first draft I start, I think this will be the one I won't delete. Because I don't think you can go into it feeling like that. But so I've never not done it. So and this is my 10th book.
Right. So but you remain optimistic. I think that's very important.
I do.
It will happen. Perhaps. Well, that delusion and optimism might be two sides of the same coin, right? Here we go.
So. I think so.
So what was it? Tell us about the Reese call. Like that had to have been just
Oh my
Enormously
God.
exciting.
It's funny as well because I'm kind of long in the tooth, right? Like it was my 7th published book over here. It was my 3rd in America. So unlike perhaps how I would have been if it was my debut, I knew what it meant. And I just, even though I was pregnant and very fatigued, I didn't sleep for 3 nights straight. And it was just, my mind was just spinning and like I couldn't talk about it with anyone. So that kind of, and I was actually on a tour. So I was in hotel rooms. And I just thought this has changed my life forever. And I couldn't process it. It took like a week maybe to sort of feel normal again. It was just mad. And then it lived up to all of those expectations in August. Like it did change my life and career irrevocably.
Yeah. It's so amazing. I mean it's such an honor and it's so exciting. And I love that book. I love her book club because it is like women focused and so woman positive, and she's such a strong woman, and it is
Mm.
really like I can't even imagine. And the call came from your agent, I assume.
My publisher,
Oh,
actually.
your
So it
publisher.
was 11 p.m. And then I texted my agent afterwards, like, "Are you awake?" And she was, luckily. So yeah, it was just I will remember it for the rest of my life. And I will remember like hitting the New York Times for the rest of my life. And everything happens late at night because of the time difference. So I lost so much sleep due to
Right. You're
excitement.
right. Well, that's the right way to lose sleep, right? You want it to be
Yeah.
because of something like that. Well, that is really, really exciting. And I know they do some beautiful things. Do they still do the thing where they give you the art? Um,
Yeah, in fact, can you
you
see it?
have
I'm
it?
surrounded by
No.
laundry. This is mum life. Can you see it
Oh, I
there?
can. It's so beautiful. I love that.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, it's just the whole thing was just a dream.
Yes, I can imagine that. Super. And did you feel like, does it change the pressure? I guess you'd already, no, you were still writing just
I was
another
still
missing person.
writing. Yeah, I think so. I'm glad it was a very different book.
Mm-hmm.
Because although it's about parenthood, it's super different. It's not speculative. Wrong place, wrong time. What's so interesting about it, I thought, was the conceit of the time travel, whereas just another missing person, it's the twist. And so
Yeah.
it was a completely different offering. But yeah, I think you get used to that, I think, because all of my books here are bestsellers. So I am, not to brag, but that's just a fact. And I am sort
Right.
of used to dealing with that, you know. But yeah, I think it does up the ante with each book. And, I'm just plotting out my next book. And I am thinking, I know what I want it to be, but I've already thought, okay, how am I going to set it aside from other thrillers? And
Mm-hmm.
that is pressure. But in a way,
Mm-hmm.
I've sort of always felt that.
Yes. Right.
So yeah, I
So
think
now
you
how
have to
does,
close your mind to this.
yeah,
Otherwise, you
to
won't
right, to
write,
the
really.
noise. Of course, you'd
Yeah.
go insane. You'd be, yeah, paralyzed. It's so true. Tell me, so when you, so sounds, I love the sort of way you think about, the books that you wanted to write about a missing, a missing woman, but not in the way that other authors had done it. And so, and also police corruptions, and similarly, not in the way that we normally think of police corruption, which is for money or political power or whatever other reasons, but for something much more personal and therefore much more understandable, I think. So as you're thinking about that, what made you think you wanted to write about a missing woman? Do you remember? Is that just something you'd sort of seen about and thought about, or?
Yeah, I think there's almost every thriller writer does a missing person book, I think. Um, and I sort of feel like I'm building this canon and that was sort of missing from it. That's the way that I felt like I kind of want in on this, but I want to do my own thing within it. That's how I felt. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How I guess you find this like I don't really know like what thought process is. I
I
just
know.
like
Yeah.
I had this call recently with a hostage negotiator because my next book's about a siege, and he said to me he's a freelance kidnap and ransom negotiator now. And I
Wow.
thought my next book's going to be about kidnap and ransom. I just knew it. And then it was like
Right.
finding the thing, the
Right.
hook that sets it aside from the usual kidnap and ransom, which I've done, but I just knew. And then it's like, once you know, your focus is narrowed, and then it's like, okay, I just need to find an interesting slant on this. And that's kind of how it
Right.
goes for me.
I love, yeah, that's different. I think sometimes that's the way that you describe it is different. And I appreciate that. But but it's more like a concept that you're going to address, right? It's missing
Yeah.
persons. It's hostage and ransom. It's that is really, and you were playing, I think, with Wrong Place, Wrong Time. You were playing with the time dynamic that was sort of in your head when you started to write that book.
Yeah, like that was born out of, I want to write a non-linear time book.
Which is a different way. I think that's unique.
Yeah.
I think that's
Do you
unique to
think?
authors.
That's interesting.
I
Weirdly,
do.
not to name drop, but Lisa Jewell did say that to me. She said, you think in a conceptual way.
Yes.
Whereas Lisa thinks in a plot way.
I think, and I would say most of I think this is going to be interview 89 or 90 for me. And I think you might be the only author I've ever heard describe it quite that way, that it's more of a concept to you. Yeah. Which I actually think there's something really unique about that. And I like that your sort of scope is not, because I think we can get really, blocked and railroaded if we think of one plot, right? Versus if we say we wanted this concept, and then every plot is available, right? You could take kidnapping and ransom and make it about greed or revenge. I mean, all the 7 are, main plots, right? And yet when we talk about a plot about something specific, it sort of narrows itself really naturally and maybe not that helpfully. I'm taking notes, Gillian, so that next time, I'm like, what am I gonna do? I like that.
It is interesting. I think for me it's almost overwhelming to think what, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, and so I have to narrow the focus down to a topic. And then for me, I then find the hook. So I don't think about it in a thematic way. I think, what does it say on the back of the book about this?
So what would you basically you mean, yeah. Yeah. So
like,
I was just reading the back of the book.
So really the back of the book is about chapter 1, I guess, because that's the inciting incident. So like the book that I'm about to deliver is about a woman who is at work one day and there's a breaking news alert, and a man has taken 3 hostages in a warehouse in London, and then the police arrive in her work foyer and say, your husband's caught up in this, but he's not one of the hostages, he's the hostage taker. So it's about a siege, but the hook is, what if your husband does that? And what on earth could be the reason? So that's kind of how I went into that. Like, I knew I wanted to write a siege, and then I was like, okay, but I need a way in that isn't just there's a siege,
Right. And then this was the book that launched you into what your next idea would be, by the conversation you had with the expert. That's
And I do find I will do like a few books that sort of go together. So Wrong Place, Wrong Time and Just Another Missing Person are a whodunit, really. They're a mystery. But then these 2 are like hostages and kidnaps. And then like the next 2 will be like other things, I think.
So these are more like a why done it versus a who done it, right? We're trying to figure out why the husband would be wrapped up in that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I liked talking to the hostage negotiator so much that I thought, I'm not really ready to leave this topic. And I think a ransom note is just about the most interesting thing right now. And I know that, you have to sustain that for a year. So
Yeah.
as soon as I get that fire in my belly, like, oh, okay, I want to read all about ransom notes. Like, that's when I sort of know that's the way into the next one.
Yeah. And do you sort of feel like you do the research ahead of time before you write your first draft? So you kind of know everything you think you need to know, even though, of course, we always have things that pop up. But is that sort of the way that you figure out a book?
Yeah, sort of. So I'm reading a memoir at the moment about someone who was kidnapped for ransom. Because at the moment I know the hook, but I don't know anything beyond that, because I'll start it like in the autumn. And then I will, as I write, I tend to befriend someone for a few books. And so I will ask questions of my hostage negotiator, and just so that I'm not taking any complete right turns that would never happen, and then you have to redo, even though I delete it anyway. But so he will kind of steer me, and then I often will say, look, will you read these passages and tell me, like, I know that the big picture works, but would they have this gun or this gun, or, and then
Right.
kind of get a steer that way.
Right. So you feel like you're as expert as you need to be for in order to write that first draft, which in your mind is not going to be deleted. So there's going to be the
No,
one.
exactly. It's a fallacy, really, but yeah.
I love it. Now, is there, and I don't know, I don't think we talked about this last time. Do you have people that read along with you as you write, like you're like a writer's group? So as you're, especially when you're writing so intensely, 2,000 words a day is, that's pretty intense. So how do you feel like you're not off track? Are you talking through this with somebody? Are you sharing pages? Or are you just sort of like, it's all in your gut?
Yeah, nobody sees until my agent. So my agent reads and edits me, and then I deliver to my publisher. So I'm doing her edits at the moment. I do talk it over with my dad, because he's quite good at really specific questions. So like, if you go, I don't know what I want the kidnap situation to be, he won't really say much. But if you say, if you received a ransom note telling you not to talk to the police, what would you do? Like, he
Right.
would definitely have an answer for that. So yeah, I do talk it over with him. I think less so since having a baby, actually, but I think more about it because I sort of have quite a bit of dead time sometimes, like driving and
Yeah.
stuff. So I think then.
So you also, and you love to take your dog and now probably also your son for big long walks. And that's a time probably when your mind is also sorting through, or are you listening
Yeah.
or, reading or doing things while you're writing or walking, or just sort of open space, open mind?
Yeah, I do just think, like, I walked my dog this morning and I did think, I'm pretty sure I've come to the conclusion that I want this not to be a mystery. So who has kidnapped a teenager, and it's a suspense novel. So like, how do they get the teenager back, basically? And that's like a decision made on the dog walk, actually, and it's quite a fundamental one, because it's not a whodunit. It's not it's not a sort of, oh, it's going to be the father, or whatever. It's different. And I think it's good to know those things. So yeah, I sort of make those big decisions at sort of this time, and it feels
Mm-hmm.
almost enormous, and I think you can't look it in the eye, almost, because I feel like these decisions make the book, actually, which I find quite scary.
Right, right. Yeah, especially knowing it, like you said, it's a year and it's a big investment in your time, especially now that your time is more precious. So,
Yeah.
okay, I have to. Can you tell us a little bit about the book you're turning in, the hook, or not the hook, but the hook, or the premise, or give
Yeah,
us a
so the
little
book I'm
teaser?
turning in, is the husband who starts the siege. Um, and it's really about a marriage. And what I like most about it is that you think that the book is going to be the siege, and at the end there's a resolution. But about 20% in, the siege ends, the husband disappears, and it jumps forward 7 years, and he's still disappeared. And it's really about, I suppose he's missing, and he kills the hostages. So it's pretty real. And the stakes kind of up, because you think, how on earth can this be justified? And also I get to write about London in 2031, which is when the 7-year timeline opens. And I'm finding that so interesting. It's so interesting, like climate change and, the small changes too.
Right.
So I suppose it has that, it's not really speculative, but it has that difference.
Yeah, versus starting like setting the first scene up to be like 7 years ago and opening in 2023.
Yeah.
You're pushing us forward, which is really interesting.
No.
Well, that does it have a title? I know they change sometimes, but
well, I don't know actually. We're toying with 7 years after, but I don't know if it reveals too much. And I don't know if it's, I don't know. I'm like mulling it over. That's the title on the Word document at the moment. So we'll see.
Got it. I love that. Sorry, I have 2 dogs that are fighting. Hey boys, outside. Go on, outside. Oh my gosh. These are my new children, is these little tiny ones. Well, that is I kind of like the 7 years after. I'm not sure it gives away anything until we discover 20% that he's gone for 7 years. But that is obviously not a very non-professional opinion that is worth exactly what you paid for it, which is nothing. So this is so exciting. Okay, give us the actual the live date of this book is August
the 1st. August the 1st in
August
America.
the 1st. And today, when you are listening to this podcast, is August the 1st. So today is actually your pub day. Gillian, we're recording this obviously in advance, but happy pub day for this.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you came back, and it was so fun to hear about how much your life has changed and how wonderfully things are going. And I'm already like, when do I get to read the next one? So that's
well, yeah, I guess like, I don't know when proofs will be, maybe like January. It's nearly done, so
that's exciting. Well, I will wait till January. In the meantime, if you haven't read Gillian McAllister, this is only my second of hers, but I give her an A+ on both. They're really super fun, always unexpected. And even the title of this one is so great. Just Another Missing Person, as though that's what this is. And it definitely is not just another missing person. So it's a really fun play on words, and you're super talented, and I'm so glad everything's going so well. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. Thank you. It's so nice to come back.
Yes, it was so fun to come back, and I'm looking forward to the next book already. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us today on Killer Women with Gillian McAllister. She's uber talented, obviously fabulous and smart. And she also has that wonderful podcast, which I've listened to a few episodes of, and called Honest Authors. It goes into sort of publishing in the world as it states, honestly, which is really fun to hear if you're an author, an aspiring author, or just interested in this crazy, crazy business. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.